Brainrush is all about learning faster. And when we started this, we thought, gee, if we could get 20 or 30 or 50% faster, it'd be cool. What about 10 times faster? And all of a sudden, we've got results that are truly astounding. And I'm happy about that. This is a little bit of some of the stuff. People ask me, why education? What do you know about education, Bushnell? You're a game guy, you're a restaurant guy. And I always thought that I'm really about being a scientist. And I realized that this is wrong, that the classroom environment doesn't work. And the economics of the classroom don't even work anymore. And so there has to be a new disruptive way of dealing with it. Little Johnny went to his first day in school, and the teacher says, "What's the difference between ignorance and apathy?" And little Johnny said, "I don't know and I don't care." And so to that, he was right. And what we have to do is rekindle passion, enthusiasm, and creativity. If we don't have these are actually characteristics that make you healthier, happier, and richer. All of these things. And these are some of the things that are being drilled out of kids over and over and over again. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. Success is the ability to move from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. Hey, I've had some pretty big failures. You know, you remember my successes, but you forget my failures. Ha ha. Anyway, Steve Jobs worked for me. Talk about an enthusiastic, passionate person. And I have a book coming out next month. It's called Finding the Next Steve Jobs. And it's really about how do you find passionate, creative, capable people. Because it's interesting to find out how much one or two really passionate, creative people can change the world. We believe that our software, once we deploy it, that we can actually teach 4 full years of academics in about 6 months, leaving a tremendous amount of time for everything else. What we're seeing, there's been a lot of talk about technology and computers, but we're really in the middle of a perfect storm. And it used to be that the hardware was really not robust, not cheap, not very good. And the brain science is uncovering some amazing things, all of which are really doing some wonderful things. And don't forget big data analytics. We can be precise in a way that was not possible before. Remember, if you can't put a number on something, you really don't understand it. When a teacher says, "I'm teaching my kids better," how much better? And until you can say, "I'm 20," and actually to a few decimal points, or you don't really have what you're doing properly characterized. In order to make something better, you have to get the innovation cycle going. And what it is, you try something, you test it, you modify it, and you test it again, and you move it. And the faster you can tighten this circle, the better you can make any product, any company, any process. Today, schools are teaching in the wrong way, and they're teaching the wrong things. It's pretty damning. But in order to be truly capable, don't focus on what's wrong, focus on what is the right way. Students today are different. This is how they meet for coffee. This is how they get together for dinner. This is having fun at a museum, fun at the beach, fun at the game. I don't know if you've noticed, but these are digital kids. And in order to really be successful in engaging them, we have to engage in their way. I have a daughter who graduated cum laude from Berkeley. That was a little brag, haha. And in high school, I can remember going into a room and saying, and she had about 4 threads of IMs going. She had the TV on with the sound turned down. She had a couple of other things going on. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, I'm doing homework." And I said, maybe you could do better if you kind of focus on some of these things. She says, "Dad, I'm getting straight A's. If I quit getting straight A's, then I'll listen to you." My kids, my household, it's a lot like wrangling cats. There is no one who is a follower. All of my kids are leaders. And that actually doesn't work very well. Anyway. Learning should be active, personal, and mastery-based. And once we decide that that is the objective, you can do a lot of things. That means lectures, heavy response. If you have extreme time pressure, it hyper-focuses the student. A lecture has no hyper-focus. In fact, it's really not a good delivery system. What I'm doing right now is really a stupid way to teach you guys. But it's all that we're doing. So in a few years, I will just force you into using my software. Fast is perceived as fun. And that's something that's kind of surprising. There's a guy called Mikai Csikszentmihalyi who does a great TED Talk. And it's all about flow. And it turns out that sitting still and being quiet is so wrong that I believe that we're actually damaging kids every time we try to do that. Thalamic engagement. Now, what is it? Thalamic engagement is this red thing sitting at the top of the brainstem. And it turns out if you put a kid in an fMRI or anybody, you will find that nothing lights up when they're watching a movie, reading, listening to a lecture. Nothing. But the minute you force them to make a decision, i.e. engage the thalamus, all of a sudden everything lights up. And so if you can do spaced repetition, thalamic engagement, and really, really good forced time, everything clicks and you can remember much faster and better. This is redone over and over again, which basically says that in a 40-minute lecture, most of the people are disengaged. I mean, that's just wrong. And this is what flow is. It turns out that we've been doing this with video games for a lot of times. Flow is where you are challenged right to the edge of your capability. In video games, We call that leveling up. Because just as you get good enough, you can punch through the boss, you can go through to the next level. And so the game keeps adapting to your skill set so that it keeps you right on that edge of flow. And that's why video games are so addictive. Don't you think it would be great if we could addict our kids to learning? And that's what we're all about. Learning should be personal. Everybody is different. Spaced repetition algorithms really allow us to customize to each individual. Everybody runs and walks and learns at their own pace. If you don't do it that way, half the class is bored and the other half are lost. And do we really care that it takes one kid 3 more days per year to learn than somebody else? And that changes with time. I always like this quote. This is a good Albert Einstein, and it's really, really true. Pass and understand in order to move forward. You have a different attitude. And plus, you don't want to have kids with holes in their knowledge because a lot of it is additive. And if they get a C, that means that they have a lot of things that they don't understand. And it really doesn't work with mathematics. No grades. The whole idea of judging people based on trips around the sun is wrong. What we need to do is have systems in which nobody knows what anybody else is working on. Believe it or not, we in the first grade figured out really quickly that the blue reading group were the dumb guys. And that we don't need to do that. Because all of a sudden we can take all of these things together and make a much more powerful person and complete mastery. Understand it all. How would you like to remember everything that you learned in high school and college for the rest of your life? Well, it turns out spaced repetition algorithms are the pathway. Our brains are designed to forget, not to remember. That's why we really have to mess with them in order to get you to remember anything. And with spaced repetition algorithms, it takes increasingly a small amount. In order to learn something, you basically need 3 to 5 repetitions in a day, then once within 24 hours after a good night's sleep. That probably says that it locks something in for a couple of weeks. And then if you do another repetition at that point, you've probably got it for 3 or 4 months. Again, you've got it for a year. And then after that, you may only have to review it every 5 years. So all of a sudden, you remember everything. Now, what we don't know is, are we then going to fill up your brain? And so, maybe forgetting gives us an ability to put stuff, because there's maybe only so much. It's kind of like a USB drive. You've got to delete a few files in order to get your phone. I don't know. Anyway, the current system is really not teacher-friendly. And what we want to do is make our teachers as effective as possible by removing as much of the work. Too much dependence on extreme capability. The teacher is a disciplinarian, has to be an entertainer, is a judge, deciding on A, B, C, D, what have you, a clerk, doing all kinds of roles and technology, has to be a mentor, and then has to be a driller. This you know, this really doesn't work, even though it is thought to be a way. So to optimize the job, you get rid of discipline. The computer does that. You don't have to be an entertainer. The software takes care of it. Get rid of the drilling. We can do that with software. The judge, software takes care of all of that. And the web cloud services take care of all the responses. So you have a mentor, and that's really what the teacher wants to do. They want to mentor the kids. And so we believe that as our software develops, we're going to get tremendous buy-in on the part of the teacher, because it just makes their job easier and more fun. Bloom's cognitive domain is really pretty good. And we believe that software probably can take us very easily up to the apply level. The mentorship of the teachers can then focus on the top level. And that's where all the jobs in the future are going to be created. They need to be able to create and analyze all the data that they know. What we really want to do is learn creativity and creative skills. This doesn't work. And and what we have to do is really have a creative infrastructure in our brain. My book, that'll be out next month, about how you hire and create a creative infrastructure, is going to be really important for schools, because schools really need to think of themselves as creative factories as much as any business. Because right now, believe it or not, we have a massive labor shortage in the United States. You say, what? I thought we had a big unemployment. The unemployment rate in the United States is a total function of the failure of our school system to teach proper skills. Right now, we've been looking for engineers and software programmers and even just really good digital skills. Not available. And these are skills that can be easily taught in high school. The way you keep your brain happy and functioning are projects. Projects, projects, projects. Talk about the maker movement and just doing things, learning tool use. It turns out that it builds your brain as well as a lot of the other stuff. Where half the jobs in 10 years will be new, 10% of the new jobs will be self-created. Entrepreneurship is going to be huge. And we really have to have kids, once they, in high school, learn entrepreneurial skills, learn about the economy, economics, learn about the digital skills, because it's easy to start companies on the web. I mean, shouldn't every high school student know how to market on eBay? Absolutely. It's where the rubber meets the road, costs zero, and there's junk in the garage that they can sell. You know, I basically, with my kids, they'd say, hey, Dad, can I have $5? And I said, no, you know, I've got it. I'll give you something in the garage. And you know, it sounds funny, but they really start to understand a little bit about business. And you get the garage cleaner. The internet is a double-edged sword, and we need to teach our kids a little bit of healthy skepticism, because it's going to be fascinating to you to learn that not everything on the internet is true. And I have you know, somewhere around 10, they believe that everything is true. If they still believe everything is true by 12, we've got a problem. Right now, we need to have some adults in charge. Allowing a child, an 18-year-old, to plunge into massive student debt to obtain a degree that is increasingly worthless is wrong. And you can't discharge debt, student debt, in bankruptcy. We've reintroduced the concept of indentured servitude. You know, to be able, you know, there's so many degrees out there right now that they're spending huge amounts of money to get, and it doesn't help their job prospects at all. And I just think that it used to be that you couldn't take out a loan until you were 21. I think that the last part of your brain to mature is that part of your brain in which you can properly evaluate long-term decisions. 18-year-olds can't do it. I mean, we all know, I mean, I was there. My college days were just, you know, extensions of my adolescence. And I wasn't very serious about it, but, you know, if I hadn't gotten married, of course, that's another story. But, well, in those days, you could go to Vietnam or you could get married. I got married, and it was clearly the wrong choice. But anyway, that's also understand that the internet changes another thing. And that is, credentials used to be a cipher for saying how good you were, because it was really hard to do that. Today, I never even care, let alone question anybody about whether they went to college or not. It doesn't matter. Because there are really incompetent people with college graduates and PhDs and everything else. And did you know that the person who designed the 2600, probably one of the most successful video game consoles, was a high school dropout? If I had required my engineers to have a college degree, the 2600 probably wouldn't have existed. Well, it would have been different anyway. It wouldn't have been nearly as clever. Merit is going to be the key. And so going for a credential doesn't make nearly as much sense as just learning something really well. There are all kinds of things we can do to make schools better. This is a Japanese bus that you can go places. I mean, what a great way to get to school. And then we have this way too, which is this is not quite the same thing. Now for a commercial announcement. We at Brainrush are building software to lead this revolution. It's free. I mean, it's tools that you can adapt, any teacher can adapt to their lessons. And through the spaced repetition algorithms and the science behind our engine, they can teach 10 times faster, whatever they want to teach. And as I said, it's fun. And the enthusiasm and creativity and all those other things come as a result of this speed and ease of mastery. The drudgery is sort of taken out. And keeping fun alive is not a problem. if you're learning. Learning can be fun if we make it fun. Everyone can use it. Everyone can improve it. Think of it as Wikipedia meets Zynga. And it's free. You say, free? How in the world can you make money? If I told you, I'd have to tell you. But trust me, the people generally don't have to worry about me making money. It's, I'll be able to do it. But I'd like to announce Brainrush Labs. First that anybody has heard about it. It's a nonprofit, and it's going to sit alongside Brainrush Corporation. And what we're going to do is exploit something that our software yields. We can measure how fast a student learns within a few seconds. And so, then the question would be, since we can measure it, what are the conditions precedent? And so these are some of the research projects that we're going to do. What should you have for breakfast? It turns out if you go in, there's a whole bunch of opinions, but no data. It's the sloppiest science I have ever seen in my whole life. We know that the brain burns massive amounts of calories. Massive. And it has to be sugar. And the people say, oh God, don't give the kids sugar. But what's the brain going to use? Protein is good, but nobody knows what the right balance is. We will in a year and a half, and we'll publish it to everybody. We know that exercise is very, very beneficial to learning. 2 classes. One class is they're going to do a test. They take half the kids, they let them cram for an extra half an hour. The other half, they put on a treadmill and exercise, get their heart rate up. The kids that exercise, 15% better on the test. It turns out that your brain secretes BDNF and there's all sorts of stuff. But exactly, should it be 20 minutes? Should it be a half an hour? We'll know that. Rest. Did you sleep well? Did you have a nap? Turns out that the difference, NASA found that a 20-minute nap doubles the efficacy of the afternoon. The siesta is a really good idea. I've been doing it, and I think I'm a better person. It's definitely better than a martini at lunch. Gender, schema. Turns out that you can learn things if you have a worldview or schema to fit it with it. How do you create schema and understand the real benefits of some of these things? Trauma, enthusiasm, time of day. Some people are early morning users, some are not. But anyway, in a year, we're going to know more about education, know more about learning, know more about the brain than at any other time. And we believe that we can fine-tune and supercharge every student and really make them sparkle, shine, and accomplish. Thank you very much.